Hey Ukulele Bandits, so there you go, that's Amazing Grace, and it's a really nice melody to learn on the ukulele. It sounds really nice when you play it in this style as well, which is basically chord and melody. So I'm playing chords in between playing single note melodies, and I want to do something slightly more challenging, incorporating scales, because you can see then how useful scales are, especially when you start putting notes of melody lines in between chords, how it sounds really nice. And this is a nice slow one, so you can take your time with it, and the chords are all very simple. Even the B flat, which is not the barred version, it's just a 3-note version of B flat, is a nice easy way of playing the B flat as well. So the idea is I'm going to go through and talk about what's involved and guide you through the piece, and then for those that want a little bit more of a challenge than the last one, Twinkle Twinkle, this would be, especially if you want to incorporate chords into melodies, this would be a good place to start. So starting off, we've still got our technique, which if you saw the last video is thumb on the 4th string on the G, then that 1st on the C, then you're going to put that 2nd finger on the E string and the 3rd on the A, so you're keeping 4 fingers across 4 strings there, and if they're sitting on those strings, so whenever I play the 2nd string I'm going to be using that 2nd finger. When I play the 3rd string I'm going to be using, which is a C string, I'll be using that 1st finger, and the thumb will be at the top. But for all the chords, where you'll see the chords written, so you can see they've got this wavy arrow, and they're on where the chords are going to be played, and so you can see the chord name as well above them. And the idea is that first one, which is just a normal F, would be played with the thumb, and you play it into the strings you see. So on that you see 2, 0, 1 across that 4th, 3rd and 2nd string. So I'm just strumming those 3 strings. Now sometimes what I do is I mute with my other fingers that are left over on this hand. So if I'm strumming, I could just strum to those 3 notes and rest my thumb on that first. But you also know sometimes I do this as a little bit of a habit, really, from playing various stringed instruments, muting out the strings I don't need to play, just resting that finger there. You don't have to do that, but if you find that you're catching that string a lot and it's ringing, try resting a finger on it that's spare, and you might find it's a little, you don't hear it. But obviously the aim is to just play the notes that you see on the chart. So starting at the very beginning, it's in 3/4, 1, 2, 3 per bar, instead of the usual, like what we do for pop songs, which would be 4 beats per bar. And the idea is this first bar is a lead in, and the lead in means it's the start of the piece of music, an introduction if you like, and it starts on the 3rd beat of the bar. So if we go 1, 2, 3, and these 2 notes, these are quavers, and they're twice the speed of the crotchet. So if you looked at the last video, you saw crotchets were just as if we were walking. It's just a standard on the tick of the clock, if you like, playing on every beat. Well, this, we're going to fill this with 2 notes per one of those beats. So if I got, there's my beat, that's roughly the speed. So it's a very slow song, and you can play this with a little bit of embellishment on the spaces and the gaps, and it still sounds very good. You don't have to be really robotic with this song and really efficient, but as much as you can, try and stay within that time frame of 3 beats per bar. So the lead in, now you notice what I'm doing there, I'm playing that with the 1st and the 2nd finger on the correct ones, and then I'm going to strum the F chord. So I'm going to get the single notes, and then the thumb's going to strum, get into my F chord, and I don't want to hear the 1st string. You see it on the line there, you're not seeing it on the 1st string. So you practice that one, and I would just, if you're new to it and you find that a little bit awkward, just spend a bit of time getting used to that. And that'll be 3 and 1, 2. And then when we get to the 3rd beat in the bar, you see what we call a triplet. And a triplet is where we squeeze basically 3 notes into the space of what was those 2. And you get ba ba ba, ba ba ba, 1 under, 1 under. In this case, it's on the 3rd beat, so we're going to go 3 under, 3 under, 3 three-hander, three-hander. So I'm actually doing this the three-hander. So I start with the A string, then the G string at the top, and I'm keeping that first finger from my F note. It hasn't changed. I'm just taking off this one from the F on the second fret there, and now I'm playing the triplet. So that little triplet part on the end, and then I'm going into an F7 chord. So it's the standard F7. There's the F. This note here that I'm throwing in is the 7th, and this time I'm going to play all the notes, rake it down with the thumb. Remember those arrows, those strum arrows are going to be all raked. And what I mean by that is when you strum down, is you're just going to, instead of going straight through like you would with a pop song if you were strumming, you're just going to drag it across the strings a little bit more. And it just embellishes it and makes it more musical and interesting. There you go, so that's that first little part there. And then we're playing open for one beat, and that's on the third beat, 3. And then for our B flat, with 1, 2 and 3, we're holding the first, second, third finger across from the first fret, second fret and third fret. Same as we did before. We're strumming across, and we don't want to hear that first string. Then a single note on the 2, and then the bottom part of an F. So normally when you play an F, when you're strumming it, you hit all the strings. We're just going to play the bottom part of the F because we want to embellish this note, the A note here. So when we drag it across, we really hear that as part of the melody, and that's what makes it sound so nice when you put the chords in with those single notes. And then we're doing something very similar. It basically sounds very similar to what we started at the beginning. We've got the O1, drag into that F chord. The difference is we don't put the triplet in here, just a standard freehand, and then play the F again. We drag it across, getting that open string again, yet again dragging it out to the A, and then I'm going to use my third finger on basically on the C note here on the bottom of the C chord, and that's the high note we're reaching, and then we embellish it with the chord underneath that. So far we've got drag it, triplet, and then the open, the B flat, single note, then the F, then the O1, top of the F chord, the bottom of the F chord arpeggioed, and then you're going to drag it across the F again. There's a C. And that's the idea really, is you want to kind of do 2 bars at a time. When you've got those 2 bars under your belt, you then want to go to the next 2 bars and then join that line together and then add the next 2 bars. Like we're doing here, we're going through it in steps. So that if you start to get really familiar to those 2 bars and comfortable with it, then when those 2 bars that are played again further in the song or something very similar, your fingers will adapt to it a lot easier. So try not to go from the top to the bottom all in one hit, because it would take you a long time to process all that information. What would be far more efficient is literally just do the first 2 bars, even just doing that a few times over, and then doing the triplets on its own. And when it starts to sound right, sound like what I'm playing there, put the 2 together. And then you go to the next bar, and maybe put all that together. And then just keep working on that and build 1 bar, 2 bars at a time, and you'll get halfway through and start to see some of the repetition occur in the melody, and that will make it a lot easier for your fingers then to pick those parts up. So we're kind of about halfway through. We're up to around about the C7 at the moment, and the idea of the C7 part is you've got a split here. We've got the second finger on the 2, third finger on the 3, and then we just put that first finger. It's just another version of F. That's all it is. It's a version that you wouldn't normally play of F, but the reason why is because we want to hear that C note in an F chord. So if you've got the 2, the 3, where we split the thumb at the top here, and obviously my third finger picking out that note, then I drag it across with the C and an F. That highlights that C note of the melody. and then we're going to play the opposite. We're going to play open on the A string, open on the G. It's a triplet again. Now remember, we played this earlier on. We've played this in the second bar. So if you spent time doing it, free and you spent enough time on it, get it under your fingers. By the time you get there, oh, I got this bit. I did this earlier. And then we're into the F7 that we did earlier. Then the B flat that we did earlier. So it's repetition again. And we did that earlier as well. And triplet, we've done all this before, and it's just the last two bars slightly different, which is all the open notes. Really easy. Then play the open on that G, and then finally an F note where we don't hear the first string. And that's really important the technique when you're playing through, that you have all your fingers lined up on the strings and keep them as close to the strings as possible. That'll make it far more efficient with your picking hand. And with this hand, that you pay really close attention to what strings you need to be covering on the fret. So for example, we're looking at the F chord. We've got on this F chord here, we're covering up to from the second, the third, and the second, third, and the fourth string. We're covering there, and we're not playing that first string. So those are the really important things to be aware of, to make sure that you're playing only the strings that's highlighted. Obviously this is a little bit more advanced, so it requires you kind of to know the chords well enough and playing single notes, or maybe a little bit of arpeggio work well enough that you can pick this out and it starts to sound quite musical. And it is a little bit more challenging from the aspect that you're combining two elements, the chords and the scales, together. But it's a nice slow piece that if you play it, even if you play it a little bit slower than what I was playing at the beginning there, and you give it some extra spaces, it should still sound very, very musical and nice to listen to. Okay, Ukulele Bandits, I hope you enjoy this one. I'll see you soon.